Hello everyone, my name is Alexander Leckmeyer. I'm the CEO of PINPOOLS and we are one of the major chemical marketplaces. And this episode is about the global digital marketplace landscape in the chemical industry. And therefore, I'm talking with Zhao Zhong from Lux Research, who is actually doing a study about this topic. Zhao will give us some new insight about digital approaches for chemical marketplaces on the global level. And at the end of this episode, Zhao will give you one important takeaway which you can directly apply at your company. So if you like my podcast, it would be really great if you can share it or like it. And if you agree or disagree with some comments, some ideas, please comment and we are going to answer your comments. So Zhao, I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah, that's close enough. So, I've heard of 10 different versions of that. So, that's great.
I believe so, yeah. So tell me a little bit about your company. I checked out the internet page. So you're basically doing research for different industries. And one industry is the chemical industry.
Yeah, that sounds great. So my name is Xiao. So I'm a research analyst from Lux Research, right? So Lux Research is a technology-enabled advisory firm with a focus on emerging technologies, like Alex mentioned, right? So we have major areas, 5 areas of coverage. So we have the materials innovation, we have digital transformation, energy, food, health, and wellness, and also the future of mobility. So our clients are generally from global 1,000 companies. Some of them are from VC firms and some of them are from government agencies. And within those global 1,000 companies, we have clients usually from, corporate ventures, corporate strategy, innovation, tech scouting, and R&D as well. So we have headquarters in Boston, we have offices in New York, Amsterdam, in Europe, Singapore, and Tokyo. So that's Lux Research.
Great. So at the moment for chemical industry, do you see any geographical region which is really active on this topic of digitalization?
Yeah, so first of all, digitalization, maybe it's a broader topic. So, if we're looking at digital sales platforms, we're conducting, sales of chemicals, materials online, I think there's definitely a geography sort of preference, not really a preference, right? So, but, for example, if you talk to someone in Asia, especially in China, people most companies there have a presence in Alibaba, right? The major e-commerce platform there. So I think there's that, local partnership advantage, and also Alibaba has a very broad network there. But then on the other side, let's say if you're talking to some companies or if you're conducting sales in Europe, I think most companies have, have been using, let's say, platforms like yours, and also I've seen a couple of other companies, actually a lot of other companies using other, platforms like maybe Commodus and others. So I think there's definitely a geography dependence there as well. And in the US, so I think we're kind of seeing both. So yeah, there's definitely a geography playing a role there.
Could you summarize China as potentially at the head of innovation topic?
So I guess, so you're saying like, is China like kind of playing a major, well, I don't think so. I think, broadly speaking, the concept of conducting digital sales, right? First of all, that's not new, right? So now we're kind of at the second wave or maybe the third wave, depending on how we define that. I think we're at this point, people are trying to explore different business models. So, if you're thinking of drawing a diamond shape, we're kind of in this widening space there, kind of exploring, right? We're not there to say, hey, like who is going to be the winner, which business model is going to win. We're going to see that in the coming, like say, maybe 3 to 5 years tops, but not now. So it's hard to say like which region or which company is a winner at this point. Though we did definitely see a few leaders. Yeah.
It's really exciting because this morning I read Reid Hoffmann, the founder of LinkedIn, and he just talked about the winner takes it all, or the winner takes most of it. So do you think that could be also applied on digital channels within the chemical industry, or do we see geographical differences on this topic?
Yeah, so first of all, I think there's the geographical differences now, but I'm not sure, but I don't think in the future, that the not so near future, when first of all, I don't see a winner takes all situation. I see like a couple of winners you take all of them, right? So and then when that happens, I don't think there's going to be a strong geography difference there. So what I would see is that, just like if you compare and the enterprise SaaS platform versus like a consumer SaaS platform, right? So if you look at the history of VC investments or exits, right? So you see like for the oftentimes the winner takes all situation happens in consumer space, right? You got a Facebook, right? So you got the others, right? But I think for in the enterprise the SaaS plays, oftentimes you're seeing there's a couple of big winners there. They're kind of sharing the major markets, right? So this is like what I see is going to happen in the the DSP, digital sales for chemical space as well. I don't see there's a single winner, and frankly, it's really hard to say like which like this couple of winners, right? Some of them will be coming from a large chemical company actively adopting digital sales channels, when others there's a chance for, let's say, for companies like yours to becoming really big, right? So just kind of like how Amazon started, right? So selling books there and kind of vertically expanding to all the other spaces, and then later building the warehouses, building the logistics there as well. I see a similar path for a DSP company there for the chemical space as well, although that's like a little bit more challenging than, let's say, Dow or BASF kind of trying to build that. So my personal take.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk about the marketplaces. And for sure, I'm really excited about that topic. So what do you see as a major advantages for using such digital sales platforms?
Yeah, so there's a couple of advantages there, right? So first of all, we're going to talk about the disadvantages later. But for advantages there, I think there's that clear cost reduction path there, because in theory you can do all these features like negotiation or conducting the sales process online, right? So some of the companies offer that, and so it's cost reduction, I would say. And also frankly, let's say, give you an example. If you have a presence on Alibaba as a chemical company, right? It reaches like it's a wholesale platform called 1688, right? If you're on that platform, you can reach, to some remote areas, for example, in China, where you may not have a physical store presence there. So that's a very good way for you to to get exposure to new customers there, right? So that's just the one, getting new customers, and also cost reduction for existing sales process. Yeah.
Okay, and what do you see like? What are the major challenges for the participants, so for the purchaser and for the selling companies, in really adopting to these new topics, digital marketplaces?
Yeah, I think so. There's a few angles there, right? So for a startup company, the challenge is to get users to join the platform, right? You need to have a network effect. It's really hard to have a network effect if you don't have many users. So also you got to have a healthy balance between buyers and sellers, right? You got many people wanting to buy, many people wanting to sell, right? That's always a challenge there. And then as a startup company, you're facing competitions from those large corporations that have their own digital platforms, or spin-off companies there as well. So that's for a startup perspective. For a large corporation's perspective, there's that internal challenge there. Well, maybe especially from their sales team there, right? So basically you're saying, hey, I know you have very strong relationships with your customers, like you're talking to your salesperson. Oftentimes a traditional sales process, especially in the specialty chemical space, it's actually done by physical interactions, and you talk to your customer, handshakings, you set visit them, you have dinner with them. Now you're saying, hey, there's the potential to remove all of those. It sounds like maybe too cold for some of the people in in a large chemical company. So that kind of definitely gonna create some barriers there. And also, I'm not seeing this now, but I think that could be potentially be happening, right? So the transaction, we're talking about shipping chemicals, so the safety in logistics and all the other kind of physical considerations for after the transaction online is done, it can be a challenge too. But I don't see, again, I don't see that's happening now, because most of the platforms only provide this this channel for the transaction to be made, and then the buyers and sellers are handling this logistics offline there. So that's not a problem now, but could be a problem in the future. And also I'm seeing a few kind of startup companies are talking to logistics partners as well, so that may be a challenge.
Yeah, so just for our listeners, Xiao just has talked about a network effect. So to give you an idea what network effects means is, so if you have more suppliers, the purchaser on the one side is getting better quotes from the supplier side, and at the same time you're getting more happy purchaser, you're getting more purchaser, and that attracts even more suppliers. So network effect means that you're having on both sides, they are attracting each other, and therefore it's a reason to join the platform. So you have this major network effects. You had it with LinkedIn, a company, or Airbnb or Facebook. They have grown to their level caused by this network effect. And that is one of the major driver for a platform being successful, because that was one challenge of our company as well. Growing, you need the sufficient number of suppliers to make the purchaser happy, and also the supplier happy that you're having a sufficient number of buyers. What do you think, like, do you see, you already gave us an indication about when these marketplaces becoming mature. So do you have an exact date in your mind when you think these digital sales channels, they are not anymore a niche? Because I think, or correct me, Xiao, at the moment I think the feeling they're growing strongly, but they are still a niche within the sales strategy of a company. So what is your idea on this topic?
Yeah, so that's if I knew that date, it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar answer. So I don't know the exact date, but I think like you said, I totally agree. Now it's, let's say, digital sales platforms, it's still considered as a niche digital strategy within a overall digital strategy for a chemical company. So I think in the like I mentioned before, I think now the space is both from a startup perspective and also from a large corporation's perspective in the chemical and materials space. I think we're still exploring different business models, or should I be working with a startup company? Should I be think of building my own platform? Some of them have done both, right? So in terms of different geographies, should I work with Alibaba on 1688 in China, or so this kind of questions are still being kind of explored. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years, well, of course, the exact year, it's unknown, but it's something like that. In 3 to 5 years, we're gonna see more clearly a few winners, both from the startup space and also from a large corporation space, that they're gonna demonstrate the success of their business models. Because now, at least from startup space, I've seen like lots of different business models being tried. Right, so there's a charging transaction fee, there's a way of data monetization, or there's that subscription fee, like a traditional SaaS model. So we're gonna see that in 3 to 5 years. Let's say we're gonna see a couple of winners in the startup space, and we're gonna see a couple of leaders in the large chemical space. And after that, I think more companies in the chemical space will think of more actively building their own DSP strategies. At that point, I don't think, well, in the beginning of the year 5 or year 6, it's still kind of a niche there, but say in 10 years, I doubt it's still going to be a niche. I think it's going to become at least an active strategy or active component of your digitalization strategy. So in 10 years, it's not going to be a niche anymore for sure, I think.
So one question I always get asked is at this point when I'm telling something like you just said, the people asking me are the same we heard already 20 years ago in the .com era. So, and all these marketplaces have failed so far. So I don't see why this should be different today. What do you think are the driver from your perspective that this time is different compared to now 20 years already ago?
Yeah, so interesting question, and I'm sure I can ask you that question because you clearly see a difference between now and 20 years ago. Otherwise, you won't start a company. So my personal
hopefully,
yeah. First of all, I think like you said, this concept of digital sales of chemicals is not new, right? It's been there for, I think it's over 20 years, right? Before the internet bubble, so there was at least a dozen or several dozen companies claiming to do digital sales in the chemical space, right? They kind of all started with like when Amazon started, right? So basically we're seeing Amazon as the winner. Kind of now Amazon's kind of really doing everything, the consumer space and maybe a few other spaces as well. So
and interesting, Amazon started before .com era. They started in 1997, 94 or
95. I was reading Jeff Bezos spoke about the everything store like recently. So
yeah.
Yeah. So no, yeah, I think at that time, first of all, the internet was, well, I don't think, well, the internet was very slow, right? So there's all this kind of features we can talk about the internet, and also the market was not ready. So the market might be ready for consumers at the space at the time, like 20 years ago, but I don't think it was ready for for enterprise companies like chemicals, especially frankly the chemical space is it's considered as one of the spaces where it's kind of the culture is kind of conservative, right? So and also we're comparing to Amazon, we're talking about conducting very complex transactions of chemical tradings online. There's that safety issues, there's that data concern, there's that the internet was really slow, it's not convenient, right? So people don't really like to adopt a new technology when it was just there because, when it was just launched, it's kind of sloppy, right? So and now I think now it's really different. First of all, I think the market it's much more ready for, let's say, conducting business online, right? So kind of thanks to Amazon, all the other consumer e-commerce companies there now, like shopping online is kind of our behavior, right? So it's really everybody does that. It's kind of a true statement, right? So now the market is more ready and we have more technologies to protect data, for example, there's safety protocols, and then there's that analytics can be done using AI and machine learning. So and just frankly the user experience is much better now comparing to 20 years ago. Let's say 20 years ago people didn't care too much about UX or user experience for enterprise platforms, but now there's a trend of, let's say, you should design your SaaS platform for enterprise having the same mind as if you were to design a consumer product. So there's the UX perspective as well. I think it's really important.
And what I read many studies about, that somehow the B2C user behavior, their expectation also transfer to B2B. So if everything is going quite smooth by ordering a certain product through Amazon or eBay, how we all doing it, we have building up the same expectation also for B2B. It's quite interesting also, for example, of the response rate. A few years ago, it was that you're expecting someone answering an email within a few days. Now it went down through a few minutes or some hours. So this topic is, there's a lot of speed about it. Another interesting question is, so do you think this digital sales channel is somehow be considered as they're replacing the actual sales. So in some talks, we're getting on the one side, we're having some people are fearing it, or some people simply seeing as an opportunity and saying, okay, my job is always changing, then I'm doing sales somehow differently. What is your recommendation or what is your experience on this? How you should consider it?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, right? So it's a new tool for your existing sales team to conduct sales better and faster, and helping you reach out more potential prospects there as well. So let's say think about using that platform to augment your sales strategy, right? So now you can talk to you don't have to travel there to visit them. You don't have to, well, you still go to trade shows, you still go to conferences, right? Sure, you still have your relationship building, effort. That's all great, but now think of using the digital tool to help you develop new customers that, there's only 24 hours for you, but now think about, let's say, using a platform and kind of generated a few qualified leads, then you can have phone calls with them, right? So why not, right? I think that at least in this stage, in the near future, the digital sales platform can be used as a tool to help existing sales to be more efficient and more, developing more opportunities there, for sure. It's not replacing it.
Okay, and that reminds me about the Chinese letter about crisis, and that consists of simultaneously of the letter danger plus chance, and that was a really exciting experience for me. That it depends on the view you're having on this topic. So my next question is, so what do you think, like what sectors of the industry will be most effective or have the biggest opportunity from the digital marketplaces?
Yeah, so well, I've heard of different opinions there, right? So if you within the chemical and material space, so there's that's the split of specialty and commodity chemicals, right? So I think there are opportunities for both, depending on how you're gonna place, or how you're gonna place your strategy on it, right? So I think for specialty chemicals, there's that the transaction, it's considered more complex, and there's more steps there, and then more customization needed, more communications needed as well. So that side, I think having a digital platform could help with that. And also, let's say, oftentimes, if you sell specialty chemicals, there's a chance for a better chance for you to discover new customers there as well. Let's say by online traffic, who kind of clicked your product, who actually reached out to you. So there's that. So opportunity, and I'm seeing a thicker profit margin of doing specialty chemical sales online than commodity, right? So now let's talk about commodity. I think there's that opportunity there as well. So when we're talking about commodity chemical sales, there's people shop by the specs there, right? So you buy a lot of them. I think there's that chance of optimizing your logistics or your supply chain, so that you're actually selling, you have a better sales opportunity compared to your competitors who don't have a platform there. So there's that. Think about, let's say, if you're selling some commodity material in a certain region of the world, right? So it would be nice to know, like, hey, like which region it's actually needing it more, and then you can optimize your supply chain accordingly. So there's that optimization there, but I think I see a thinner profit margin comparing to specialty chemicals.
And that's also interesting.
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say that I do see a few other, let's say, sectors like personal care space, and there's ingredients and formulations there. So we see that being sold online as well. So I don't want to underestimate that market there. So
So that brings me to two important questions. So what I've heard a lot of times is, especially about specialties, that you need a lot of consultancy and development together with the customer and so on, and it's so unique. And by all these reasons, it's not possible to duplicate the product and sell it to another customer. So what do you think about this input?
Yeah, you don't, right? So you don't only turn this into a digital sales, right? So you combine that digital features with your personal touch. I think at least that's true for now, right? Just think of that digital platform as a helper for your sales process there, right? So it's going to be more efficient. It's not going to be replacing the process.
You might potentially not, or to summarize what you said, or how I understood it is, so basically you are not able to substitute the individual product, but you can support the sales by adding certain digital features for enabling more digital sales for this product.
Yeah, at least for now and in the not so distant future, right? So I'll be silly to say, hey, just put your specialty products online and then forget about it, and then people will pay online. I don't think that's the case for now. So there's always that human touch.
Okay. Also for commodities?
Yeah. So well, for commodity, I think it's the transaction was relatively easier, but it's not that much easier. I think there's that. Well, if I were to sell some commodities products there, there's always going to be a human touch there for now. But like I said before, there's that. I'm not sure if this is happening already. So I might think so actually. So let's say if you're a large chemical company, you're selling commodities, and then let's say there's going to be a profit to be earned by optimizing your supply chain, right? So because you kind of know which regions, you're a global company, right? So you kind of know which regions are actually needing more of your products, so you can either provide a faster logistics, or you can optimize your inventory, so to speak. So there's that chance there as well. I don't have a good example like which company is doing it, but I think there's that opportunity. You need a human as well, but then there's that opportunity of earning an extra profit there, although it's a thinner profit compared to specialty.
Okay. So considering all the big players, like let's call Dow, BASF, SABIC, Sinopec, Inneos, and so on. So do you think that one of even this big major player could disappear from the market by this digitalization? Or do you think no one of these big companies really is missing out this topic? What do you think about this?
I don't think there's those big players will disappear completely, right? So frankly, I see digital efforts in all of these companies you mentioned, right? So maybe there's some others as well. I think we're going to see several clear winners, right, in a not so distant future. Let's say maybe 10 years, even less than 10 years, because like digital sales is only one part of the the digitalization strategy. I've definitely seen, and I personally cover other topics like AI, machine learning in materials chemical R&D, a space called materials informatics, right? And there's also that using sensors to gather data in manufacturing sites, the IoT perspective there as well. We've seen like efforts in those kind of areas as well. So think that my personal view is that I think kind of those technologies as pieces of puzzles for digitalization, right? So I've seen, let's say, those large chemical companies are, many of them are actually doing multiple things together, right? So we're going to see several, not one winner, several winners, right? So that's going to kind of combine those pieces together, right? So you have, AI, machine learning for R&D. You have digital sales platforms for sales, marketing, and logistics. And also you have maybe Internet of Things for manufacturing of your chemical there as well. So we're going to see clear winners. So for those that are not actively adopting those technologies, they're going to be falling behind for sure. But I don't think they're going to be out. of the picture.
How do you see the situation? I mean, we just mentioned all the global big players. I mean, they have different budgets for investing in topics like AI and machine learning and so on. But what's about, let's say, the smaller and mid-range companies? Do you think it's quite challenging for them to really keep the pace of the bigger companies or the investment budget of these companies? Or what would be your advice to these companies?
So like smaller size or middle-sized companies, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, well, I think that's, frankly, I think, digitalization, it's an opportunity for them to seize. So, let's say maybe talk about chemical sales. Frankly, if you have the right strategy, the upfront investment should not be that high, right? You're not talking about like 10 million, $20 million of investment there in the beginning, right? So there's those, investment light sort of opportunities. You can work with a company like PINPOOLS, for example, right? And also you can work with a third-party e-commerce platform just to kind of test the water. In fact, you mentioned about me doing a report, talking to people in the space. So I think the first step is to actually test the water, because I've definitely seen lots of chemical companies already doing it, right? So working with a startup like PINPOOLS or others, or depending on your region, right? So some of these startups are actually focusing on Europe, and others are there's like very little companies focusing in Asia, right? So, but in Europe, there's players for you to think about working together, and also think about having a presence on an e-commerce platform. So to see what happens, and then you can learn features from there. You can kind of learn customer behaviors. So it's like just to consider that as a strategy to further digitalize your customer touch points and gather feedback. And right, so doing those kind of things doesn't really require you to invest like a lot. So definitely there's an opportunity. And frankly, we talk about this whole episode, we kind of talk about the advantages of digital sales online. If you can learn those features using a relatively light investment, this is definitely an opportunity for a mid-sized chemical company to have a niche there in the near future.
That's great opportunity. So I mean, besides that, next to PINPOOLS, there are also existing some other interesting marketplaces. So we are also consulting every producer company, also try out what you can do. And what I have experienced, or we here at PINPOOLS, is before digital strategy and so on, there must be a certain degree of cultural setup and or cultural change towards digital enabling environment within these companies. I think that is really one of the major big challenges. I think especially here in Europe. I don't know, how do you see this, Zhao?
So like cultural change, yeah. So that's definitely true, right? So in fact, I've been talking about cultural resistance, other technologies like machine learning and AI as well, right? So definitely true in the chemical sales space. I think it's kind of like the situation where it's gonna happen regardless of you like it or not. And then even within, let's say we talk about the potential disruption for the existing sales process, I think not everyone will resist to the idea of having a new digital tool for sales. That's for sure, right? So if you do it, some of them will adopt it. And then frankly, it's a technology that really works eventually. I understand it, this cultural resistance, it's a real thing there, and it's gonna be relatively slow for them to change. But I think eventually it's gonna change. Well, just like our way of conducting like shopping online there, right? So I wasn't thinking of shopping online when I was in college, but now I can't live without it, right? So because like the trust has been built, well, right? So we're actually seeing, I think the trust of of conducting this kind of chemical sales online is really important. And I think we're at the stage it's actually being built. Once this is done, I think it's gonna be smoother for adoption. So it's gonna happen.
We are coming now to the end of the episode. So what would be your final recommendation small piece of takeaway for our listeners, what they can directly apply within their companies out of this episode?
Yeah, so I think most of the people of this audience, I think you know that the concept of selling chemicals and materials online is not new there. We have seen some failures, right? So this time I think it's different, right? We talk about the reasons there. So suffice to say that digital sales platforms are here to stay for the chemical industry. So for a chemical material company, right, DSP or digital sales platforms should be a component of your overall digitalization strategy now, right? So working with a startup company, like PINPOOLS and others, or maybe working with the e-commerce platform now, right? You can learn from these partnerships and think of building or maybe acquiring a suitable one, let's say a startup company, or maybe building your own platform in a not so distant future. This is definitely something that I see that's really needed. So that would be my kind of takeaway for the audience.
Okay, great. So, listeners, I hope you had enjoyed our talk, and yeah, we would love if you liked our episode, if you share it within your media channels, if you like it or comment it. And Ciao, we have to mention you're doing a study at the moment, so you are still looking for some people to interview on a global level. So tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah,
how these people can contact you, how they can reach out to you if they want to participate within your study and want to get to know about the outcome of your study.
Yeah, so that's great. Thanks. So like Alex mentioned, we're doing a report on digital sales platforms of the chemical industry in the future, right? So we're trying to talk to maybe 30 companies there. Like Alex mentioned, we're still looking for more people to interview. So you can reach out you can go to luxresearch.com. That's our website, or you can just shoot me an email. My email address is my first name, so XIAO dot my last name, which is ZHONG, so xiao.zhong at luxresearchinc.com, right? So even so now we're actually looking for participants for the report. But then even let's say you reach out to me after this is done, we'll be happy to have a discussion with you and then to see how we can help you there further as well. Thanks, Alex.
You also on LinkedIn, I know, yes. So they also allowed to contact you via LinkedIn or via email. I think you are flexible, yeah.
Yeah, I'm flexible, and I can talk to my my colleagues at the marketing team as well if needed. So, but yeah, there's flexible.
Yeah, great. So, Ciao. Thanks a lot for your time and for your wonderful and deep insights, especially for our listeners to see this topic is rolling on a global level and what the perspective here. And maybe when you have done your study, maybe you can talk about the outcome of your study. And it was a real pleasure to have you here with me. And hopefully talk to you soon, and maybe one day after Corona we see ourselves live at a certain point on this planet. So,
yeah, exactly. I look forward to that, Alex. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care.